Netflix's live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender showrunner is kneecapping the show after what looked like a pretty enticing trailer. Nearly all of his comments since then have been huge red flags indicating he is making major changes to the characters as well as the themes and tone of the show. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender showrunner Albert Kim admitted he and his team made changes to Katara's character because of, quote, gender issues. He spoke to IGN in a very lengthy kind of tell-all interview about the show, where he admitted that there would be changes to the characters. He said the characters, we had to dimensionalize them, whatever that means. Makes absolutely no sense. But there are certain core, I would say there's a core DNA to the characters that you don't want to mess with, whether it's Aang, like I said, his childlike goofiness, his sense of humor, the burden of his responsibility, Saka and his humor and his pragmatic outlook on life, Katara's warmth and her optimism. Those things had to carry through into our version. Well, that sounds great. I hope you would carry those on because those are essential to those characters. He went on and said, so you start with the characters and you say, what's the essence of the characters that got a big change? And what's the room where we can expand a little more? So I don't really know what he's saying there. It doesn't really make sense in the context of the rest of his answer. He's asking this question: what's the essence of the characters that got a big change? It's indicating that we're going to keep this essence, but we're going to change everything else about them. Is that what he's saying? I'm not really sure. It's kind of confusing. And obviously, in the next question, he's clearly saying that they want to expand on the characters in the live action. I don't understand why you would need to do that. There's no need to expand on the characters. They are good as they are. You don't need to change them. Expanding on them, it means you're going to be changing them. Leave them the way they are. He would then admit the show made changes to Katara based on gender issues. This is what he said. The cartoon, for as great as it was 15 years ago. So it's clearly outdated now. It's outdated. Our moral standards have been updated now. Yeah, this show is so over. This is a huge red flag. Massive red flag. This to me means the show is pretty much dead on arrival. Saying something like this, just instant not watching. And so things have changed. There are certain roles I think that Katara did in the cartoon that we didn't necessarily also do here. Well, why? Why? What's wrong? What's wrong with that? What was wrong with it 15 years ago? What was so wrong with that? I mean, I don't want to really get into a lot of that, but some gender issues that didn't quite translate. They are going to be injecting feminism into this show, is what that reads to me. And they're going to do it through the character of Katara. They're going to ruin her character, and the show is dead on arrival. This is a massive red flag. And it comes after this red flag that we had here from the actor who plays Katara, Kyowenchio Tarbell. She told Entertainment Weekly, I feel like we also took out the element of how sexist Saka was. I feel like there were a lot of moments in the original show that were iffy. So they were changing Sokka's character there, claiming that he's sexist. And then the actor that plays Sokka, Ian Owsley, he concurred. He says, yeah, totally. There are things that were redirected just because it might play a little differently in live action. Clearly wanting to change the characters. And you have this here too. Kim talked about Sokka as well. He says, IGN's Alex Stedman described Sokka as an a-hole. And Kim responded, yeah. So we had to guard against that kind of stuff. And so there are things that aren't really changing a character as so much as updating them a little bit. You're changing them. You're changing them. You're trying to justify it in your mind by claiming that you're updating it instead of changing it. But you are indeed changing it, Albert Kim. And you know that. That's why you're trying to spin this little narrative that you aren't changing them. You're just updating them. No, you're changing them. They don't need to be updated. 15 years ago, they're already out of fashion. Out of fashion with our degenerate worldly culture. The show is dead on arrival. Absolutely garbage. Massive red flags here. And we kind of have, I guess, an idea of why the original creators decided to nope out of this project. So if you recall, back in 2020, Michael Dante Di Martino and Brian Konietzko, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, they left the project. Di Martino shared in a letter. In a joint announcement for the series, Netflix said that it was committed to honoring our vision for this retelling and to supporting us on creating the series. And we expressed how excited we were for the opportunity to be at the helm. Unfortunately, things did not go as we had hoped. I realized I couldn't control the creative direction of the series, but I could control how I responded, so I chose to leave the project. It was the hardest professional decision I've ever had to make, and certainly not one that I took lightly, but it was necessary for my happiness and creative integrity. He then added, and who knows, Netflix's live action adaptation of Avatar has the potential to be good. It might turn out to be a show many of you end up enjoying. What I can be certain about is that whatever version ends up on screen, it will not be what Brian and I had envisioned or intended to make. As for Brian, he posted on Instagram, when Netflix brought me on board to run this series alongside Mike 2 years ago, they made a very public promise to support our vision. Unfortunately, there was no follow through on that promise. Though I got to work with some great individuals, both on Netflix's side and on our own small development team, the general handling of the project created what I felt was a negative and unsupportive environment. To be clear, this was not a simple matter of us not getting our way. Mike and I are collaborative people. We did not need all of the ideas to come from us. As long as we felt those ideas were in line with the spirit and integrity of Avatar, we would have happily embraced them. However, we ultimately came to the belief that we would not be able to meaningfully guide the direction of the series. So I think that's pretty damning right there. As long as we felt those ideas were in line with the spirit and integrity of Avatar. So they clearly did not believe that what Netflix was creating was in line with the spirit and integrity of Avatar. And I think Albert Kim is telling us that is indeed the truth. But let me know what you guys make of this. What do you make of these huge red flags, these changes to the characters of Katara and Saka that they are making based on gender issues and the claim that Saka is an a-hole and he's sexist? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.